Okay.
All right. Good morning. Today I'd like to start with a question, and keep your answers to yourself, please. But where does the wind always blow 65 miles an hour? And for the past 2 years, I've been working on an invention, and today I'd like to introduce it to you. During the next few minutes, I'll be discussing the device, its parts, and how it works. I'll also be talking about the number of truckers in the United States, the main freighting routes they use, and how much power this could produce for this country. After that, I'm going to be talking about some of the problems and hurdles that I'll have to go through to get this application up and running. The biggest problem with wind power is that the wind has to blow. Okay? That limits the geographical locations for wind farms, which limits the amount of power the wind can produce. So, if you guys haven't guessed already, where the wind always blows 65 miles an hour is the freeway. Everybody, I'm sure, has stuck their hand out the window as you drive and going like this, right? Well, my idea is to take that wind and semi-trucks and use it to generate energy. Now I'd like to introduce the wind-powered hood scoop. Now the wind-powered hood scoop mounts on top of a semi-truck above the roof. Sorry about how small it is, but there it is. It consists of 5 basic parts. It's got turbines. The turbines I found at wind-powered equipment company. There's 4 of them in each set. They're connected to rotors. Wind travels through the rotors, turning the turbines. From there, electricity is drawn through heavy wiring down to a battery bank. Now, the cover plate for this hood scoop is fiberglass, and it does 2 things. It protects the equipment from the elements and the weather. The other thing it does is it forces wind into the rotors, causing it to turn and generate energy. Now the other 2 items are pretty important. They're the battery bank. The battery bank is 6 200-amp batteries that charge as you drive down the road. And the last main part of this is a sensor. And what the sensor does is when the batteries are charged, it closes the air intake so that the turbines don't bake the batteries. Okay, now I'd like to move on to the amount of truckers in the United States. As of 2002, there were over 3.3 million truckers in the United States. The plan I have involves taking 30% of all the truckers and implementing this system into their daily routine. Now, when we take 30%, that works out to 990,000 truckers. Okay? Now, each truck will generate 40 to 60 kilowatts of energy every 15 hours, or every time they have to refuel. So, throughout the year, they're going to be refueling about approximately 150 times a year. Okay? Now, if you take those numbers, and it works out to 5.94 billion kilowatts. And power companies, they don't deal necessarily in kilowatts, they deal in megawatts. So what we need to do now is reduce that number by 1,000, and you come up with 5.94 million megawatts. Okay, that's roughly half the amount of energy that wind produces right now. So, now we know how much power they produce. We know how long it takes. Okay, now we need to talk about the key routes. And what this is a map of the main freighting routes that truckers use. And you can see from New York over to Chicago, down to Florida, and clear across the United States, there's thousands of miles that truckers travel every day. Now, each one of these lines represents 50,000 truckers per day. the bigger lines. The smaller lines are less traffic, but still pretty significant. And then when we jump ahead to a projection of 2035, you can see the amount of growth is pretty significant throughout the nation. And these main routes, these nice big fat ones, these huge veins, would be the focus point for this system for starting. Okay, later on down the road, I'd like to branch off, but this is definitely the starting point, the focus point to implement it. Now we know that we have truck stops. Truckers get their fuel from truck stops. At these truck stops is where the batteries would be taken off the truck, put into a power room where they're converted into the grid. And at the same time, empty batteries would be mounted to the trucks for them to go down the road and generate more. And now we need to figure out how to get the truckers and the truck stops involved. And in order to do that, I'll have to negotiate some type of price break for the fuel cost to make it worthwhile for the trucker. And for the truck stops, they're going to have a tax break or tax rebate for the construction of the power rooms. Power companies will, in closing.
You got 30 seconds.
Excuse me. Also have to get a hold of all the power companies throughout the nation and get them on the same page and get them buying the power back, okay? In closing, I've covered the product and the parts, the application, and the capabilities. I'd like to also let you know that not only truckers, but busing companies, small local delivery companies can all use this plan to generate power.